This is Malcolm Joseph, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
Man, are we in for a treat today? Malcolm Joseph is a world-renowned producer and a touring bassist, and he's got a new record out, and we're very excited about it. And we're going to talk about it just a second, but I want to take just a moment because I have a somber note. I want to pay tribute to a man that I am very fortunate to have gotten to know through the show, named Don Lewis, who passed away yesterday. Don Lewis was a pioneer in electronic music. He was from Ohio, which listeners of this show will know is the land of the funk. But he came to the Bay Area and made a name for himself as a Bay Area musician with a little piece of equipment that he developed that was a bunch of pieces of equipment put together that he called Leo. It was the Linked Electronic Orchestra. It was the predecessor to what we now know as MIDI. And so in 1972, a guy named Karo Takahashi met him at a NAMM show and said, I don't know what it's going to take, Don Lewis, but I need you to work for me. I'm starting a new company. That company is now called Roland. And it is because of Don Lewis that we have drum machines that are programmable. So every drum machine that has buttons on it that allow us to create is a result of Don Lewis's insistence. He said, you know, I'll take a little bit of a salary, but my big condition is you have this rhythm machine that has presets on it, and I need to be able to program it myself so that I can be creative. And so that, his legacy on that will live forever. However, moving forward, he eventually went to work for Yamaha, and as a pioneer in frequency modulation, which doesn't sound like, yeah, I don't know if that affected me, until you hear that he created all of the sounds on the DX7. So, and the synthesizers that came after it that used frequency modulation to make sounds are all also a result of Don Lewis. On top of that, he was a kind and gentle spirit and a very creative man, and I've known him for a couple of years. Again, met him through the show and grew to love him very much, and will miss him very much also. But I say all of those things not just to pay tribute to the great Don Lewis, but also because it is impactful upon our guest today, Malcolm Joseph. Because as a bassist, he has a foundation in the funk. However, as a producer, he uses all of those tools that Don helped to create to give voice to all of the sonic landscapes that come out of his head.
Yes.
So thank you for joining us today, Malcolm.
Oh, pleasure. It's absolute pleasure, John. And Don, up there, thank you for letting me use those soundscapes, man. You were the man. Without you, what we would be doing? Who knows what we'd be doing?
Seriously.
Pioneer. Yeah, rest in peace.
Well, your previous appearance on the Break It Down show, people can listen to that, get a lot of history, but we do need to touch on those things for our new viewers and listeners today. So let's go back to your origins as a musician and a creative artist and work our way up to your new record. Where did
Great.
it all begin for you?
Well, first of all, it began at school, as you could say, your high school. Started there in a kind of little band, little group of a friend of mine who was sat in the classroom, causing mischief. And we ended up playing together. And that was my first in of actually playing an instrument. And then from there on, I lived in an estate, a housing estate, or you would call their projects. And I sort of started to develop my skills a little more. And friends who I grew up with, we kind of realized that we had the same link. We knew the same thing together. And we formed a band. And that band was Seventh Heaven. Seventh Heaven ended up becoming a little bit of a chart success, a bit of a kind of the boys from the council estate do good kind of story. And we ended up supporting bands like Kool and the Gang, SOS Band, Womack and Womack, and so forth. And we had a great time. We did loads of videos, and we had a good success out of that for a few years. And that was the first moment of my professional career. And then,
I want to highlight a couple of things. First of all, your education in music, and that just to highlight the importance of music education, because we're losing it little by little. And it's so important that, our supporters out there get involved in supporting music education, because guys like Malcolm, guys like me, I don't know about you, Malcolm, but I don't know that I would have made it through that school experience were it not for music giving me an outlet for creativity.
Yeah, I think so. The thing with my school at the time, now it's different. We had one music teacher who came in, he did one half term, and we never saw a music teacher again. But that particular, and that was it. That was it. You're on your own. But that was an inspiration of actually thinking that this was it was challenging, and it was a hope that there's something you could look forward to that can be done. Education, I'm self-taught. I've kind of worked my foot and self-taught my playing, my engineering skills, my programming skills, all self-taught. But for
terrific.
Younger generations, music education's a plus. Reading music, learning the history of music, picking up an instrument and dedicating to it. It's definitely the way to go.
It's that last part, I think, because I had a similar experience. It's my band teacher in high school didn't disappear, but he virtually disappeared. We weren't really involved. He did what was legally necessary to retain the job, but the rest of us there remained creative, and it gave us a place to do that.
Exactly. And that's exactly what happened. Unfortunately, the music teacher obviously didn't impress the board at the time, that it wasn't really a necessity to have, and he didn't last very long. So, but
they let you have the space.
They let me have the space, to do it. So we just carried on as we were and self-taught ourselves and played together and just went from there.
Yeah. So now, what were your influences back then? Because the importance of your self-taught background means that you had to develop that creativity, but you developed it along the lines of the things that you were listening to. And then, like you said, found common ground with your mates. So what were you listening to?
At the age of 12, 13, before that, it was a lot of reggae and stuff from my parents. But my friend who I started with, we started to listen to a lot of Status Quo. His older brother was into Status Quo.
Okay.
And we was kind of going from his house during our lunch break at school and getting into his room and playing to Status Quo records. So it was quite the first influence for me, was playing like Alan Lancaster, the bass player from Status Quo, and then started to listen to Thin Lizzy, Phil Lynott playing bass, and it just kind of went from there. And my scope of music widened and broadened from that.
Well, Status Quo being an influence on you, they were an influence on a lot of people. I mean, eventually became the Scorpions, and I mean there was a lot of stuff that branched from Status Quo. So not only were they huge in the music business, but they were huge in music influence among young people.
Yeah, they were sort of the young people's kind of boogie blues. It was sort of kind of a different sort of blues that you were kind of introduced to, that you had never heard before, and it was quite I don't know, it was like a boogie woogie, but it was like quite rocky, and it was quite kind of punchy and had a lot of energy in it.
Yeah. Well, what about your playing specifically at the time? Did you start on the bass with that influence?
First of all, this is a funny old story. My dad bought me a semi-acoustic guitar, the ones with the little F-shaped holes in the front.
Okay.
Yeah, and he bought me the guitar book, the Burt Weedon guitar book of chords, and I think it's still there. Yeah, and I started playing the guitar. I still was influenced by bass. So basically, what I did, it had a wooden bridge. I carved the wooden bridge, took the high E and the B string off, and made the actual 4 strings remaining on the guitar a bit wider spaced. And that's when I started to play bass. And I just got the influence of playing bass like that. My father was
making it happen.
Just making it happen. This is what I want to do. This is how it's going to be.
Yeah. Now, your father wasn't very happy with you at that moment, but you understood what your voice was within the music soundscape.
Yeah, exactly. He knew that's what I wanted, and he knew that's what I was listening to, and that's where I wanted to be. And that's
Did
where
he? Was he? Is he still with us? Was he around long enough to see you
he's still.
succeed?
Oh yeah, he's still with us. He's
Fantastic.
85 now. He's still here. Still loves his music, and yeah, he's seen a lot of my journey from the
I can't
start.
imagine there's anything more rewarding than to have seen your son blossom in his creativity and then actually, make a living and make great music and become an artist who's flourishing and important.
Yeah, that's I'm sure he's very proud. And big influences were from him, actually. He's not much of a musician, but he listened to a lot of music, and he watched a very big show here called the Old Grey Whistle Test, which was like every band from all around the world were doing live shows. It wasn't actually pre-recorded. Some were pre-recorded, but it was always a live event. And
Wow.
from a youngster, you used to kind of stay with me late at night to watch it. Yeah.
Oh, that's terrific. Over here on the other side of the pond, we had stuff like Don Kirshner's rock concert. And, we had shows like that were event shows. And, they were important. They were impactful. They made us be creative.
It's just, it was such an amazing thing to see that they are actually making this possible, and you could be doing the same thing. So
Yeah.
that influence in itself was pretty kind of phenomenal, really.
Well, hats off to your dad for solid parenting. I also want to acknowledge the British artistry in calling what we know as the projects the council estate.
The council estate, yes.
Well, that sounds like an awfully pleasant place.
Yeah, it sounds posh, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
But that's where good music comes from.
Oh yeah, we grew up with like listening to great music from our peers. They always present. There was a whole variety of music. It was never just one sort of genre. There was, because it was such a diverse community. So it was good for that sense.
Yeah. So you went from the influence of Status Quo to Thin Lizzy. What else has shaped? Because if you listen to your new record, I wouldn't think, boy, here's a guy who listened to a lot of Status Quo and Thin Lizzy.
Yeah, you wouldn't know.
You've had a lot of influence since then.
Oh yeah, a lot of influences. I think the premise of like having Status Quo was basically kind of been introduced to rock. So it was, it was the first and foremost thing that I was working with my friend. So after that, I started to spread my wings and started to listen to a lot more music. I did a little part-time job at a record store, and that's when it all opened up for me. And
oh boy.
Oh yeah.
You worked at a record store.
Yeah, for a little short while, part-time, little Saturday job.
Yeah.
That's what I did. Yeah.
Well, okay. So when you work at a record store, and Pete can attest to this because he worked at the legendary Tower Records in Sacramento.
Wow.
But when you work at a record store, when you get your turn and you put music on, you can't be the whack DJ. You got to come.
Oh no, you had to be what was happening now. Yeah.
So everybody had that pressure on them. That meant that all day long you were listening to the stuff that was what everybody had to consider the best.
Yeah, and fortunately for everyone, I got into Parliament Funkadelic, so I was P-Funk from very early, and I think a lot of it was because of Funkadelic's kind of rock influence as well.
Yeah,
they were a rock band, and it was from there I watched it progress and went into Parliament Funkadelic, and then took off from there.
Fantastic. So now, as we fast forward, when you became a producer. That took your, you had your ability as a player, and of course everybody, starts as a player and kind of gets to know music from that point of view. But talk about your transition into producing and what that was like.
Producing was like I've always kind of liked the idea of really indulging in every instrumentation, the whole arrangement, the coloring, and just working with musicians to bring out their best potential and what they haven't really seen yet. And for that, so it was kind of like being in a band, but leading a band, and you know the players and what they're capable of, and how do you kind of interpret that into a solid whole thing, you know? So I sort of like the idea of, I started kind of working with little smaller bands when I started a little rehearsal room. I was just recording, and I said, "Oh, we really like your ear. Could you do this? Can you can produce our record for us? Give us the direction where we should be." And it was just a slow, easy process. Got more into recording, more into meeting bands. The word spread out. Can you do this? Can you do that? We want you to produce tracks for us or albums with us. And it just one thing led to another.
Terrific. So, you know, when we start off in the producing world and we're getting to know, you know, we take our technical skills and kind of apply them, and there's an evolution there. Where would you say now, if you're producing a new act, a young act, how much of your job is technical and how much of your job is psychological?
I think about 80% is psychological and 20 is about technical.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's terrific. So do you think that you're probably biased, and I want to address this bias, but do you think that bass players make the best producers?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us why.
Because they can sit back, listen, and let everyone get on with it. We hold it back. You get a chance to listen to arrangements, soundscapes, beats. You get a chance to listen to everything. So you're focused on outside of the box. You're holding it in. You're holding them there.
Yeah.
But you get a chance to hear arrangements. You listen to arrangements more. You concentrate on melodies. You listen to tones of vocals. How does it work? How does it suit? Why does it sit in there? And you just get a chance. You have more space to listen.
Yeah.
You know? I think
it's almost like a guy who builds a house, and if you're in charge of building the house, you know the foundation.
Yeah. So created the foundation, color. You just build it, color it up, paint it.
Yeah. If it falls apart, if the foundation's not there.
Yeah, if the foundation's not there, it's no point starting it.
Yeah. You know, that's a reflection of your role on the bandstand too, is it not?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you know, it is. It's we hold it.
So I think you'd say, I think you'd probably say that the bass player makes the best musical director.
Yes.
All right.
Are you a few bass
collectively, you and I have pissed off. We've pissed off all the keyboard
players. Whole kind of musical fraternity now. They're never going to talk to me again. Right. But here you go, chaps, ladies and gentlemen. Bass players are great producers.
That's right. You know what? If you want booties to shake, they are.
Oh yeah, man. If you're going to get people dancing and booties to shake, you come to the right place.
That's right. So now, you know, let's talk about your new record. Tell us about what inspired you to start this record, and you know, kind of the launching pad for what you were doing, and creatively, where are you in the you know, in your space of your career, in your space of your life, and what is this music reflective of?
The album started at the beginning. I released the album in 2005, and I hadn't released anything since then. And for longer time, people are saying, when's the next record coming out? When are you going to do an album? It's all right releasing tracks here and there. We want to hear an album. We want to hear what you're all about. And so for the album for myself, it's a journey, really. It's just all the influences that I've worked within, I've really enjoyed playing in. And it's just a reflection of the colors that I've seen in my life on my travel through my career. The inspirations and stuff were from all sorts of particular people, especially musicians that are actually on the album, who I've known for a number of years, who have kind of done an amazing journey too.
Wow.
And sorry.
No, go ahead.
And it was a journey. It was done through the COVID moment, the lost years, as I call it. And it was a great opportunity to capture everybody because everyone was at home, not doing much or trying to do their own thing. And I had a word of demos that I was going through, and I just said, like, what you doing? Do you fancy playing on this track? Do some collaborations? Do you want to do some singing? And I started to put the team together.
So this album is a work of opportunity to some degree. That's terrific.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and it was the time to take it, and I took it. And
all right.
And the musicianship that's come out of it is just quite amazing, really, considering how it's recorded.
Well, I'd like you to name names in a moment, but first I want to ask you, does that mean that your compositions on this record were written during the lost years, or have you been collecting over time and you socked away some gems? Because a 17-year hiatus,
yeah, it is a long time. It was a considerable amount of time. So, considering I was kind of working in a recording studio and working for other people and producing and writing or engineering other people and then touring on top of that for a length of time, it was like you never really had the time to do it. So I was picking at certain demos and projects that I was starting and looking at. And then the time came where I could put it all in the same pot and get it kind of finished and cooked,
Yeah, terrific. Well, let's name some of those names. Who played on this record with you?
Cleveland Watkins, a famous British jazz vocalist. Orphy Robinson, another famous British xylophone player who's played a numerous amount, different major people, both of them. A guy called Steve Monty, who was playing in a rock band called Curve here, who played with Ian Dury at one point or the other in his career, played drums.
Slow down, because Ian Dury, for our American listeners, we didn't get a whole lot of Ian Dury over here.
No, you didn't, no.
And that's a shame, because Ian Dury, I don't know how to really categorize him. He was, somewhat, he was almost kind of like Donald Fagen in that he led a bunch of studio musicians, and he was funky.
Yeah, very. It was, yeah. And he was a great lyricist. It was quite,
Sex and drugs and rock and roll.
Oh yeah, that's the one. And it stuck with everyone, right? Nothing's changed. Yeah. And he was.
I'm also a fan of "Wake Up, Make Love," which didn't age well. In the Me Too generation, they don't get it.
No,
but it is a classic, and the grooves and stuff that. Did Steve Monty play on either of those records?
He didn't play on the records. He did a lot of the touring.
He did a lot of touring, yeah.
Yeah.
Playing with Ian Dury was a big deal. I mean, it was. I liken him to Donald Fagen because that's kind of he was at the top of the heap.
Yeah, he was. Raw as they came, and it was a great band.
And you landed Steve Monty.
Yeah, and I landed Steve Monty. Yeah, and another drummer, Nick Van Gelder, played with Jamiroquai, worked with Jamiroquai, kind of worked and wrote the first Jamiroquai album. Had Will Johns play guitar, who's Eric Clapton's nephew, who played guitars on a track or two. Bruce Martin.
That's a good place to learn to play guitar.
Oh yeah.
To be in the nephew shadow of Eric Clapton.
Oh, Eric Clapton, yeah. He's out on the road at the moment, Will. At the moment, he should be over the States soon. They're doing a whole revitalization of Cream. So they go play all the Cream tracks. And I think it's got Nathan East's son on keyboards.
Noah.
And Will Johns, obviously Eric's, and I can't remember who the bass player is, but another family connected bass player.
Terrific. Yeah, we had Nathan East on the show. His first appearance on the Break It Down show was probably 6 years ago.
Okay.
And at that time, Noah was still, in his mid-teens. but he was already making a name for himself as a piano player. And Nathan said, my son has more talent than I ever did, and he's coming up and has perfect pitch and is wonderfully creative. And that was a kid who was like in middle school. So what he's developed into now, he's already monstrous.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I was really surprised that Will and Nathan, I mean, like Noah had got together to do this band for the Cream. So that's going to be an amazing lineup.
Yeah, and then would you say that Will John's guitar playing resembles Eric Clapton's at all, or what stylistically, where is he?
Stylistically, I think he's Will Johns. He's got his own thing. He's got an amazing tone. He uses his effects. He's got some really great chops. He's a lovely man. He's just like, the sort of guitarist you can say, here's a track. Could you figure out what you want to figure out? And I know it's going to work, and that's cool. Yeah. I wouldn't say that he was like, the influence, but I'm sure he got a few chops off his uncle, like, as you do. Sure. And but he has got a unique, as you do, yeah. And it's a unique sound, and I love it. Yeah, great.
It's interesting that you categorize him not only as a unique talent on the guitar, but also as just a nice man, because people underestimate the importance of that in terms of musical collaboration.
Right.
Just being around people who are kind, and that just helps give voice to what you're trying to do creatively.
Yeah, and my thing is that being in a lengthy career as it is, it's always a pleasure to find nice people still around and to still give niceness to younger people to see it. This is what we're all.
Yeah. That's great. And most guitar players are assholes. No, just trying to piss off everybody who's not in the rhythm section, Malcolm. That's just... Yeah,
just concentrate on the bass player is the greatest. And the drummer. Yeah, the drummer.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I play in a British rock band. I'm out here in California, but we're a British rock cover band. So we play all of the British invasions. And our guitar player / lead singer, his name is Andy Brunt. I'll shout him out, but he's also a very nice man. And the being creative with a bunch of people that you actually like being around is it's crucially important, and it makes for better product.
Yeah, and you'll get the best out of everyone from that.
Yeah. So that's part of your psychology as a producer as well, I imagine.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever put yourself in a position where, as a producer, you had to be the enforcer? You had to.
Yeah, put your foot down. Yeah, this has got to stop. Yeah.
All right, you whippersnappers, enough with the shenanigans.
Yeah, no more now. Time to get serious. Let's work. Okay. You've had your fun. You know what you're doing. Now you can relax and get on with some work. Now stop.
The other part of the psychology, being the disciplinarian.
Oh, you have to. You can't, you could be Mr. Nice Guy, but nice. It's good to be nice, but you have to be firm with it as well.
So we left off at Will Johns. Who else played on this record?
I've had Jesse Quattro, singer, who's from uptown New York or upstate New York. I've what else is there? There's myself. There's Don E, who's R&B singer, performer. He's been around. Don McLean. He's actually worked with a few people out in the States, like Lauryn Hill and so forth. Who's done quite a bit of stuff out there.
Oh, wow.
And who else we got? It was quite Annie Whitehead, and Jennifer Maidman. Annie did all the horn arrangements on one of the tracks. Walter Chancellor Jr., who played with New Power Generation, Prince. He's on there playing some saxophone on it as well.
Brilliant saxophonist.
Oh yeah, amazing guy.
Also an alum of the show, and he produced Junior's.
Oh yeah, latest track, yeah, Junior Giscombe, yeah.
Yeah, so he's another instrumentalist / producer.
That's right.
And it's nice to have that collective wisdom in the room when you're making a record.
Yeah.
Yeah, he also has been around, and if I remember correctly, I mentioned Don Lewis hails from the land of the funk. I think Walter came from the land of the funk as well, which is the Midwestern United States.
Yeah, he did. And yeah, he's quite an amazing character, incredible player, you know, got a great ear, and I'm so happy he's getting on with doing a production for Junior, and it sounds great.
Yeah. And also spent quite a bit of time, I don't know if he does still, but spent quite a bit of time as a music educator.
He did, yeah. He was in the educational system, music education, for a long time. I think he was a professor there.
Yeah.
One of the universities, I think. Yeah.
Hats off to Walter.
Yeah.
Does that round it out? Because you had many tracks and they went in many, I mean, you explored a lot of different soundscapes. So it really seems like you brought together a bunch of people. I mean, for crying out loud, Orphy Robinson on the xylophone.
Yeah, I know.
Not too many people bring in a xylophonist nowadays.
Exactly. And he just, it's exactly the same thing. Sent him a demo. He loved it, played on it, sent it back. And that was that. And it was like, we had a good conversation beforehand. And we spent about 2.5 hours, 3 hours talking about good times with Hackney and all our connections and how we met and how our paths crossed and stuff like that. He's a great musician. Cleveland again has been in the sort of jazz field, drum and bass field. Has been doing that for a long time. Worked with Goldie. I don't know if you ever heard of Goldie.
Yeah.
He's been associated with Goldie from a long time ago now.
Wow. Okay. So now as you bring these disparate collective of musicians together, you know, I imagine that you had people playing on specific tracks and things in mind for them, but how much did they go afield when you brought them in? Because I imagine that you bring in talents like that and you have something in mind for them, but then they take the ball and run with it and you end up somewhere different.
I think what I've done is created a real nice, solid presentation of the track, of the vibe. Okay. And they knew that vibe as they know me. Because they know I'm not set in one genre. I can do certain things, and they just slotted in exactly where I wanted it. They just loved it. They knew exactly how the feel was going to be, and they sat in perfect. And it was just quite an amazing feat, really.
So once again, a testament to the bass player being a musical director.
Yeah, just putting the chemistry together and just joining it up. You know, joining the dots.
Yeah. What's the single on the record that you're starting with?
I'm coming out with Ground.
Okay.
Track, just to get an introduction, and then we're going to go and look into a second one, which will probably be Rooftop Man. Ground is having a video, which is going to be done in the next couple of weeks for it. So we're just going to present that out there.
Oh, fun! So Ground is it's the title track and it's the first track on the LP. Where do you want people to find this album?
All digital platforms, iTunes.
Download it from everywhere.
Download it from everywhere, Spotify. You can find me on Malcolm Joseph Music on Instagram and Malcolm Joseph Music on Facebook. I'm on DistroKid, and obviously I'm on Spotify as Malcolm Joseph,
Okay. So everybody who's out there, check out Malcolm Joseph Music on Instagram and on Facebook. And that's where you'll get the most timely stuff, and you'll see the releases as they come out, and be able to follow Malcolm throughout his journey, because this album is a launching point for perhaps a new chapter, but you know, you're going to keep going beyond that, and you're going to keep performing and playing.
Keep performing, keep putting the tracks together, keep writing, still performing, still playing, still putting tracks. I'm on to the next album already, so I'm sort of trying to put that together now.
Oh, see, after a 17-year hiatus, it got good to you, huh?
Yeah, it did really well for me. Yeah.
So let's talk about this video that you're planning on. You, how involved were you in the vision of the video, or did you get somebody who you could trust to kind of?
I used my my neighbor. who I trust dearly. He's an animator as well, a videographer, and he helped me put the album sleeve together. I developed the concept, and he designed the sleeve for me.
Okay.
We've got it visual, and we're going to be kind of participating. We've got an idea of what the video is going to be, and I'll be sitting down with him, and I just got 100% faith in him and what his creativity lies. You know, he's amazing. Amazing.
Wow. So, because he's an animator, do you plan on using animation in the video?
Yeah, maybe both. Bit of live, bit of animation. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Can't give it.
Let guys who are good do what they're good at.
Yeah, can't give too much away.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So fair enough. That means that we had to stay on the lookout for the video, which I'm sure we'll see on Malcolm Joseph Music.
Oh yeah, just keep in touch. Follow me. Invite yourself. I'll be here. You'll have all the info you need.
Yeah. So we're gonna start with Ground, the title track. That's the single that leads into potentially Rooftop Man. I want to talk about your snare sounds, man. One of the things that I found fetching about the sonic landscapes that you created were, of course, you know, I'm always going to listen to the drums, and I'm always going to listen to the bass, and that hits my ears first and registers what we're dealing with. To me, that's the starting point for whatever composition.
Foundation, yeah.
Yeah. If I were to characterize the bass playing on Ground and really on Rooftop Man, you know, it's laid back. The sonic part of it is, you know, you have a soothing tone. It's not heavy attack. It pulls you in, and
that's
then
the idea.
And then it sits you down.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. I want to say I appreciate that aesthetic. I appreciate that approach. It feels good.
That's good. That's good to know. Yeah, it feels good to me. Yeah.
But also, I also noticed that you have a snare sound that also is somewhat soothing because, number one, throughout the album, you're not afraid to move the backbeat. And I appreciate that because that just opens up creativity. But also, your snare sound is pretty deep.
Yeah. It's depending on the drummer, really. I used two drummers, as you know, Steve Monty, Nick Van Gelder. And like, again, it was the chemistry of knowing their sounds and what sound of their drums would suit. And when they recorded their drums, they sent all their information via raw files. And then myself and my mixing engineer, Paul Reeve, made this amazing scape of making a great sound from the kits and stuff.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so, Paul Reeve is like he's engineered and recorded the band Muse, so he's been working with them, so he's quite apt in getting the sounds as well.
Nick Van Gelder, you know, he's a man. I want to say, I don't want to use the wrong word to describe his playing, but I would call him almost trancy. You know. Yeah. And if you really want to lock it, I mean, his nickname is Groove, for crying out loud.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I really appreciate that about him because, you know, he will take all kinds of stuff and lay in the pocket. And, you know, again, my appreciation is always to the guys who make the booties move. Yeah,
the same here.
And if you can't move your booty to Nick Van Gelder, your booty's made out of concrete.
Yeah, I don't know what you do. You just sit down.
Just sit down. Sit this one out.
Just sit this one out. If you can't handle it, just sit down. Yeah.
Did you ever give them both a track and then let them sort of both play on it and figure out what you liked about it, or was there specific tracks that you assigned to each one of them?
There were specific tracks that assigned to each one of them. Yeah, definitely. For that particular shaky booty roll, big sound, drum sound, powerful, you know. So it was working the two between the tracks. So yeah, they were designated particular tracks. Okay. And then, you know, then they'll play me something and I'll send it back. What do you think? And I say I like that because what I've done, I've sent them a demo with the feel of what I've programmed on a drum machine. It's hard to kind of try to interpretate that to a drummer, but
yeah,
I've known them for so many years, they understand and they knew exactly what I was talking about. So.
Well, nowadays, drummers have to be able to translate that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people just demo with a drum machine. And then when they bring the drummer in, you have to understand not just the feel that was on the demo, but the feel that you were reaching for, because the color of the drummer allows you to give, like you said, that interpretation is what's important. You bring in Bernard Purdie because he's Bernard Purdie. You can put a snare drum on 2 and 4.
Yeah.
But you can't do what Bernard does in between 2 and 4.
And shuffle it in between. You can't do it.
Yeah. I mean, and the same goes with Steve Monty. So when you have those kind of players and you have them in mind, it's nice that you actually you have the Rolodex to land them.
Just shuffle through the phone. Oh yeah, who would this suit? And go for it. Yeah.
Nice.
If it sticks, it sticks. But usually they come back and have an idea of what it needs to have on it.
Okay. So what about as this record starts to blossom? Are you touring to support it? Are you going to put a band together and get out on the road?
That is in the pipeline. That's a for the new year. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I've been getting a lot of that at the moment. So I think that's a possibility of it happening in the new year.
Yeah. These musicians that you pulled together for the album, had you done a lot of touring with any of them?
I've worked with Steve Monty quite a bit. I've worked with Nick Van Gelder. The rest of the musicians, not much touring at all. No, we've kind of met. We've had a jam together. We know each other's music, and we've gone from there. Yeah. So,
but the fraternity of the rhythm section.
It is the fraternity of the rhythm section, of course. Yeah. So that's been handy. Yeah.
Okay, so you're planning on a tour, but you don't have it all booked out yet. You're not all.
It's all sort of logistics and players, really, because as you know, as the album is kind of spanned in different fields and there's different singers and things, it's having to find a really good singer who's going to portray the vocalist through that, a male singer to portray the vocals. Quite a lot.
Yeah. It has to carry the weight of the whole record.
The whole record, and the same again for the keyboard player, for the guitarist and drummer. So it's putting a whole fresh new band together for it. Yeah. And if I'm on the road with it and the original players want to do a guest on their track, come on,
Yeah. Just a side note, I saw a post this morning from Morris Pleasure. The keyboard player. He's played with everybody: Earth, Wind and Fire, Mariah Carey, Christina Aguilera, Michael Jackson, and he's kept all the passes and the lanyards from 40 some odd years of touring, and so he had both arms out and just passes hanging off of both arms.
Oh yeah,
from all these tours, and you've had a long and storied career as well. Have you kept any mementos of all that touring you've done? Oh, here we go. The collection.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
all
quite
right.
Yeah.
Those are just thousands of miles on the road.
That's millions of miles on the road. We've gone past 1,000 thing. Yeah. I keep some. There's some scattered here, some stuck over there. There's all over the place. Yeah, it's on my guitar cases and just things,
Right, stickers and whatnot. I mean, not everybody keeps all the same things, but it's always nice to see like that one case that's got all the stickers on it, or whatever it is.
Lanyards like just hanging there. Loads. People are like, wow, it's quite nice because it's got good artworks and stuff on it as well. So that's quite nice.
Logistically speaking, when it's time, let's say, and there's no, no doubt that one of these things is going to register at some point, and let's say ground hits the ground running, so to speak, and suddenly you have, oh boy, now I have to support this with a tour because people really love this record. How fast can you throw together a tour to get on the road? If we were to like, oh man, you got a hit on your hands, Malcolm. How quickly can you shift gears into, well, we have to tour?
As quickly as I can get on the phone.
Oh man.
Yeah. If it's logistics, it's the price is right, who's going to do what, it'd be quick.
But yeah, that's what a million miles on the road gets you.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Gets you the ability to turn it on right now.
Right now, if the fire's on, there's people who'll be there for it. Definitely.
Fantastic. Hey, what's the venue that you love to play the most? And let's categorize this in like the theater and then the big arena. What in each of those do you like to play?
Theatre. I think the best theatre, one of the loveliest theatres I played in was the Roseland Ballroom in New York. That was no longer there now. It's gone, which is a shame. These are gigs in the States. We just recently played the Hollywood Bowl. That's quite an amazing place. We headlined that, so that's quite an amazing scenario altogether. That's incredible.
Well, we didn't specify for our new audience, if they didn't catch the last show, that you are the touring bassist for Grace Jones.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yes.
Yeah. So let's tell them that. Did you? Is that who you played Hollywood Bowl with? Grace Jones?
Yes, I've been touring with Grace for coming up to 13, 14 years. I've been with Grace.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
In the last 13, 14 years too, she has, of course, she became an icon prior to those 13, 14 years. So she's already so entrenched. Her identity is entrenched in her fandom. You know exactly what you're getting, and you have expectations from the fans.
And she never fails them.
Yeah. Oh man, what a consummate pro to work with.
Oh yeah, it's quite amazing, really. It's quite amazing to be involved in her career at this stage, anyway. So brilliant, absolutely amazing.
So the Hollywood Bowl, that's the big venue. That's your favorite.
That's the big 17,500 seater amphitheater in Hollywood.
Wow.
In LA.
I mean, when you go to places like that, first of all, it's a shame when a theater is no longer there, because theaters are really something to build. And if you go into a nice theater, I mean, we're in the Bay Area in Northern California. We have the Fox, the Paramount in Oakland.
Yeah.
Rooms like that.
Yeah, we played the Fox.
I'm sure. I mean, that would be a great place to see a show like that because of the sonic characteristics and because it's so elegant.
It's a beautiful building. It's quite an incredible building. So it's got a lot of history in there,
Yeah.
And
it's a shame to lose places like that.
Yeah, I know. And it's developers who want to move it on, or they just can't afford to keep it running.
Yeah, right. I mean, they're expensive to keep up. Every time I'm in a theater like that, I look up and I think, who's cleaning this?
Yeah, and who's painting it, and it comes out of everybody else's pocket. You probably have people who are creating funding bodies to kind of keep it running, and charities in it to keep it running and stuff,
I mean, I have a day job as a general contractor. So when I look at stuff like that, I think, okay, somebody's got to clean and paint these things, but you have to get equipment in here to put a person up there.
Yeah. And it's got to be safe.
That's right. In this environment, you can't just bring equipment in. You have to bring in pieces and build equipment and then put a person up there.
Yeah.
So all of these things are big challenges. The Hollywood Bowl, you said, a place like the Fox Theater has history. Man, you can't get history like the Hollywood Bowl in 2 minutes.
I know, it's quite incredible. Yeah. And I always think to myself, imagine when they performed on the Hollywood Bowl, there was no massive PA, no sound systems. It was raw as it came,
Yeah. You had to throw it back there.
You had to really belt it out, really go for it.
Yeah.
So that must have been incredible to see.
I mean, you played at the Hollywood Bowl. So did Frank Sinatra.
I know, yeah. You stood on the same stage as Frank Sinatra. Yeah.
That's right. I mean, just recently, if you took a look at bass players at the Hollywood Bowl, I mean, I know just within the last few weeks, Nathan East has played there. Lee Sklar played there a couple weeks ago.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, you know, it's just a constant flow of the greatest players, and so yeah, what a great thing.
Keeps going. Yeah, hope it keeps going. You know,
it is a beautiful piece of real estate. So now, when you are going to tour this record, and you mentioned that you have to put together a band that can execute all of the tracks. And you've got several musicians, so they kind of have to take on the voice of each one of the musicians and serve all of the tracks on the album. But they also have to have touring legs.
Yeah, they have to, But the thing about getting touring legs, if you don't have if you don't have the opportunity to get into that touring leg, you'll never know. So you have to have faith in your players, even young or have an unexperienced outside on the road, that are you have to support them. You have to be around them. You have to make sure that they're treated the right way, make sure they're looked after, their sounds are sorted out, and just kind of show them how this is how it all works properly when you get outside to the big wide world.
Okay, so for our listeners and viewers, this is why a bass.
Oh.
I don't know what I was going to say.
I'm waiting for the
Yeah, what I was saying was, I mean, you immediately kicked from bassist to artist to producer, / musical director, in the leadership that you took. And here's what you need to do when you're putting a tour together. And so all of that experience is apparent.
It is, yeah. And, I think it's like I would want all the other singers and everyone to play, to follow through and conquer the album, but I want them to express themselves in it as well. So
terrific.
Let them shine,
Yeah. Once again, there's the producer hat coming through.
Oh, yeah.
You get everybody else to shine. But, as an artist, when everybody else shines, as you know, then everybody who comes to the show has a good time.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing, is people coming out of the stadium saying, I haven't danced so much in my days. I really enjoyed that gig. That makes me a happy man.
Fantastic. Well, you know what? I think as we wrap up here, I just want to make sure everybody knows to follow Malcolm Joseph Music on Instagram and on Facebook. You get all the updates. Go find the record on your favorite streaming platform. It's on all of them, and you're going to love it. Yeah. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of musical soundscapes that you're going to know and love, from the influences that you've gathered throughout your time, and then the execution on the record is just top notch. And of course, that it starts there. You have to create something that is fantastic, and it starts with the fact that you've got these great players and you make them all sound great in these compositions. So thank you for that.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you.
Terrific. Keep your eyes open. Is there anything you want to say about the record as we round third base here?
For me to say about the record?
Yeah.
You're going to love it. Just buy it. It's great.
Okay.
Have a listen. If you don't want to buy it, have a listen. You're going to love it. And watch this bass. Hopefully you'll get us coming out in the new year and you can witness it for yourself.
Terrific. Yeah, go see.
Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you so